Going to go through it again. Very simply, we have the folded three pieces laid out here. Early stages of pregnancy, going to be fine. Remember, at some point, you're going to be separating and or elevating it. You're always checking the distance between the uterus and the tabletop. Really important to check in. Those of you working with pregnant clients and patients, you'll want to have a dialogue with your patient, of course, and be getting some feedback as to whether or not there's any sense of increasing pressure or perceptible pressure on the uterus. That's the big key. We want to position our pregnant patient in a way that we're not increasing the uterine pressure. Likewise, we're referencing her support in a way that we're not going to risk any distension, any kind of effect on the uterine ligaments. So those two key elements are very important. And I want to say too, those of you who are doing hands-on work, it's very important not to be applying an extreme amount of force and pressure on the lower lumbar spine. So we're talking about second trimester here. Late second trimester, we're going to add the large wedges. We remember that, how we add a large wedge either side, and then that's going to provide a little more depth. We're not infringing on the central space. These just fit along either side. And then eventually, as you are, we're going to separate it a bit more. And we're going to introduce the use of these long rectangles. Now the long rectangles are going to afford even more height. So you have 5 inches and 4 inches, you've got 9 inches of elevation. And when you were on this, believe it or not, I still had more than a finger width of space between the uterus, the fetus, and the tabletop. Now the small wedge comes into play so that you have an appropriate angle of support. And what we're always talking about in supporting the body anatomically with the body cushion is the relationship of the different body segments. So we have the lower extremities, which, you know, and the torso affects the positioning of the hips. And again, you're quadrupedal. It's a very safe ventral position. However, again, those of you working with pregnant clients and patients really advise that you get the permission of your patient or client's doctor before you position them face down. Make sure there are no contraindications for that particular patient. So this then is a brief review of how we set it up for face down. For side, very simply, we separated it about the same distance we have here. We moved the chest and pelvic to the head end of the table and removed the face support in its base. We added the use of the extenders, 2 of those, and they come into play here so that we have a little more support, if you recall, for the upper thoracic spine. Again, left lateral, your shoulder and arm were here, you had this nice support here. Now the reason we don't use these face down, you say, well, why wouldn't you use those? Because we want to allow some lateral spread for the fetus in that space. And this would tend to infringe on that ability, okay? So that's it. The other elements that came into play, I added some support here between your ilium and lower ribs to eliminate the lateral flexion in the lumbar spine. This went under here, okay, and this is all compressed, of course. And then to give you a little more stability in the front, if we wanted to, we had you positioned in that way. Now, if you have a client or patient of broader shoulders, a larger female, you're going to have to address the positioning for her cervical spine as well. And that's where you may want to introduce some more elevation under the chest support that's supporting her head on the side. And that's going to create more elevation and more relief for the shoulder. Okay, you didn't really need that. You're not really that broad of shoulder. But I just wanted to point out that possibility. And the use of these adjusters is not rocket science. It's pretty simple. And once you tune into the idea of body segment relationships and spinal alignment, as you use this, you'll find you can use these adjusters in very simple ways and immediately fine-tune the positioning for any patient, any condition. Well, thank you for watching, and thank you, Lisa, for joining us.
And thank you, Tom, for having such a wonderful product.
Well, great. And I want to caution you again, just as a final note, please be careful in applying the bodyCushion for positioning for pregnancy. Make sure you have the doctor's permission to use the bodyCushion, particularly face down. If you apply common sense, however, and you're sensitive, getting feedback from your client and patient should not be a problem. So caution, okay? That's the key. If you have any questions, please feel free to give us a call on our toll-free line.